This podcast is brought to you by Cybernet, the security awareness training solution designed for schools. Developed with insights from IT directors in education, Cybernet shields your school from online threats, data breaches, phishing, and more. Trusted by schools and built by industry experts, Cybernet empowers your staff and students to stay secure online. Cybernet, your trusted partner in safeguarding the future.
Welcome to the Zero Breach Zone, the ultimate podcast dedicated to safeguarding K-12 schools from cyber threats and beyond.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Phil, your co-host guiding you through the intersection of cybersecurity and education.
Each episode, Phil and I will dive into conversations that matter, breaking down the latest cybersecurity challenges that schools face.
And we're not doing it alone. We'll be bringing some experts in the field from the EdTech world and beyond for interviews, getting their take on the most pressing issues.
Plus, every episode will wrap up with a recurring segment, The Parting Tool, where we'll share a top tip or tool that you can start using immediately to stay ahead of breaches, phishing, and everything in between.
So, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you here with us. Let's not just listen, but let's take some action. Connect with us on LinkedIn and other socials and join the conversation. Together, we can build a strong community dedicated to protecting our schools. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Zero Breach Zone podcast with your hosts. I'm Phil Hintz, and that is
Andy Lombardo.
Hey, Andy, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Phil?
I'm doing well. Good to be back in the studio here recording another session for our listeners. Hopefully everybody got a good opportunity to listen last week and last time. And so I appreciate any feedback that we could get down the road here. Excited to talk about, I just got back from the ISTE conference, Andy. You familiar with ISTE?
I am. I've not been in several years, but it was a great circus of an educational technology explosion. It was amazing.
That's exactly what it is. The general feeling that we had, it was back to normal. You know, it's been off and on post-pandemic, but now that we are back, it was good to see people in person, to talk to people in person, to listen to people in person, and learn a bunch. So it was that was mutual across the place. It was held in Denver this year, so the Mile High Convention Center, if you will, and you can feel the altitude as well. So if you're not used to it, you know, coming from Chicago, our altitude is in the skyscrapers. That's about it, you know. So it was really neat to see a lot of the things that were going on. There were some really big announcements that ISTE, Richard Collada, who is the CEO of ISTE, we might have to have him on sometime for our podcast. I think we can do that sometime. I'm pretty good friends with him, fortunately. So, but he made some big announcements. He's also the CEO of ISTE. So this was the first combined convention that combined ISTE, National Society of Technology and Education, with ISTE, which is Association of, I think, School. I think that's what it stands for. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Richard happens to be the CEO of both of those. He was coming on the stage for the first time that way. One of the announcements that they made was the fact that next year it'll be in San Antonio, and the fact that it will be a combined membership. So when you buy your membership to ISTE, you are automatically a member of ISTE and vice versa. And when you go to the sign up for the conference, you can sign up for whatever area you want, but your ticket is good to get into sessions for ISTE. And if you're an ISTE member, your ticket is good to get into sessions for ISTE as well. So really putting full force effort with both organizations. And it really bridges that place that we should be with technology and education and curriculum. It kind of goes hand in hand. It should be that way. It shouldn't be separate silos. Although many districts are still that way, separate silos, but hopefully by coming to an event like that, they can kind of see where they can bring some of those barriers.
Yeah, having a symbiotic relationship between those two sides of the house being mirrored by how they're doing the organization, I think is a great move.
Yeah. Do you have silos like that, barriers like that in your district?
We do a lot. We, in technology in particular, we have very strict lines between infrastructure and instructional. There's some crossover discussions back and forth and everything, but we view them as two separate entities.
Okay. And we kind of do too, do the best we can to kind of have meetings together, schedule meetings together, and be able to bring in, because the dividing line is the training aspect. We bring in technology, we set it up in the back end and everything, but ultimately it's got to be used by the folks, the users, which is a lot of times our teachers, our teaching staff, curriculum folks, academic folks, and so the training is it all together.
Yeah, I've seen some really good initiatives wither on the vine at a lot of different places because it was set up. It's a great product. It's a great initiative, but then it's not translated to the end users. That training piece, implementation piece doesn't happen. And it's really important to just make sure you don't lose it in translation, that the great things you set up get passed on and gets used.
Yeah, that's true with cybersecurity training. Cybersecurity is not just for technology or the technology department. It takes a whole village. It takes everybody being diligent about that. It's incumbent on our districts to bridge those gaps.
Yeah, and you mentioned cybersecurity, and there's we flipped a switch a few days ago on adding a multi-factor authentication to our student information system. And so we've been doing MFA for email for a year for all staff and several years for administrators and IT staff. And that's one of those things that's really easy for us to just flip a switch on the back end and we turn it on, we add an extra layer, we've got more security. But then if we don't communicate that and we don't train that, it's a catastrophe.
Yeah, it can be. That's for sure.
I'm knocking on wood, but so far so good.
When did you flip on the switch?
Yesterday morning. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a week of testing where we had a maintenance window where we said, hey, it may not work this time. And we used that week to test it out and get the bugs out of the system. And so far rolling smoothly. It's not really a glitch. Everything's working as intended. As critical as an SIS is, it's important that the right people have access. And so the default timeout limit was like 90 minutes, I think. And when you're signed up for an activity and you have to sign in with just your username and password, it's not that big of a deal. It's just inconvenient. But when you throw in that extra layer of, now I'm having to pull out my phone, do the authentication, that's an added 15-second step. It can seem like a lot more than 15 seconds.
Yeah. Before it was those big announcements that I've talked about. I've already kind of said one, but I actually took some pictures of the slide ISTE put up, so I'm going to try and share that here at the podcast. Obviously, listening to the audio of this podcast, you're just going to get the audio version, and we'll kind of read what's on these slides. But if you're watching, you've got a chance to see these. So I'm going to start with, let's see, this one. Trying the new share feature in here. All right, you can see a couple things that I'm going to be talking about, but I'm going to bring up this one right here. So hopefully you can see my desktop here. Make it bigger a little bit. This was in the numbers. So ISTE did virtual this time. They've been kind of doing that ever since the pandemic, and I think they'll continue to do it because not everybody can make it. But virtually, and then of course they're recording a lot of the sessions as well. So all 50 states are attending, 74 different countries, 2,335 presenters. They have recorded, at least this was as 1,036 virtual attendees and 10,096 in-person ones. That is low compared to pre-pandemic, but it is higher compared to recent years. So I'm going to change out my slide here. I got some more pictures here I want to share. So let me take the moment here and come up to the next one. I wanted to have good quality pictures on our video here. They talked some competencies, and there on stage you can see Richard Collada announcing this stuff, and he talked about digital citizenship competencies, which I think is important, especially when you're talking cybersecurity. We want to teach, our citizens to be digitally responsible and obviously really competent. So they talked about they create standards here, which I'll share a book. I should open that, but I'll do that. Here's a couple of the books that they have just recently had put out there with different activities about being engaged, informed, balancing your digital work life or your digital life, your screen time, if you will. ISTE.org, DigCit is the link that's there. And these are all ISTE digital citizenship lessons, which are free for download and free for printing. For anybody that's in, I think you have to be an ISTE member, but maybe not. Maybe you can just go to ISTE and do it. Any questions from what you've seen so far, Andy?
No, that's great. And looking at that about the numbers, one of the things that's staggering to me is I heard somewhere someone on the ISTE planning committee mentioning that they start planning for a conference about 8 years out, and then putting all those pieces into place, and then at around the 18-month mark, they really go all in. So just trying to orchestrate something that size is really impressive.
Yeah. On with the idea, so about to introduce something that's phenomenal. He actually he reached out to me on LinkedIn the week before ISTE, and he said, "Hey, how long does it you to how long as a district does it take you to vet an app? If a teacher requests or a department requests that they want to use an app, how long does it take?" And I said, I talked about our app vetting process and then approval processes. We have a committee in our district that kind of does that, particularly if we're going to buy like an enterprise license of it. And I gave him a rough estimate of 15 to 18 hours. And he low end of that estimate, 15 here, as you can see in the thing. So 15 hours it takes to review an app. Average amount of EdTech apps used in U.S. districts, 2,591. So therefore, 38,865 hours spent reviewing apps across the country. And he breaks that down a little bit further. And I'm going to pull that up here. Boom. All right. So he takes that, 38,000, multiplies by the amount of districts in the United States, and that's literally 487 million hours spent reviewing apps. Can you believe that?
It's a lot of hours.
It is. So, and he takes it even further, and he brings it down to the kids, the students who are and he talked about it. I didn't care, but he talked about there are more. It takes more hours to review an app than there are students in our schools. I think that's how that worked out. This year, 7 leading organizations got together. So you've got you've got CAST, you've got Innovate EDU, which involves Project Unicorn. You've got One EdTech. Of course, you got COSIN, Digital Promise, and the State Educational Technology Directors Association's CETA, what it's known as. They all got together and said, we need to do something about having trusted apps, if you will, and having a place that that kind of house that can actually whether or not those apps are meet criteria. And some of that meeting criteria is the interoperability, the safety of them. So they came up with these 5 EdTech quality indicators, evidence-based. Is the app evidence-based? Is it usable? As users actually all use it? Is it inclusive? Of course. He says they need to be evidence-based. They need to be inclusive. They need to be usable. And of course, safety. And that's something I always strive for here. The zero breach zone. We don't want apps to be breachable either, right? If they meet those criteria, validations, and a lot of times we'll have certifications. This is EdFi certified, or it's a trusted app from One EdTech, and all those different organizations have these seals to show whether or not they are meeting those 5 criteria. But ISTE said, we need a place, make it easy for everybody. So we are going to create this edtechindex.org. And so if you go to edtechindex.org, they are starting to have this list where you can go through and for the app. If you guys are considering, if your district is considering doing this app, they're actually able to go here kind of as a clearinghouse, see if they've met those criteria. Obviously, we still want, data privacy agreements and all that other stuff, but at least vetted by these major organizations according to a set criteria, which we often call standards, in the EdTech world, or even in technology for that matter. So what do you think about what I've been showing so far?
So is that something, that EdTech Index, is that something that's going to be a paid service, or is it something that's just available and open to the community?
So far, it's open and available. If you're, you may have to have membership. I didn't get that because it's still kind of in beta now. So right now, it is definitely free for anybody that goes to the edtechindex.org. And you can see it's it's part of the ISTE and ASCD. So, excuse me. I think that it'll eventually be. I would hope it'd be available to anybody. Any district needing this access. So,
it sounds really similar to the way Common Sense Media does their media vetting.
Yeah. I guess I got another picture of that one. Let's see if I've got another one here. Finalize. Oh, and so what they've done is, as it says right here in the captions, eventually, in order for a vendor to actually show up on the floor of ISTE, of the exhibit hall of ISTE, they're going to have demonstrated validations aligned to those 5 quality indicators. I said educators there, but it was indicators what he said. They had live captioning there. Excuse me. Actually, in order for them to be able to, and so that, as Richard said, it's a bold move because obviously the conference is spotted by a lot of these vendors, and that's what makes it tick. They said that of our student data privacy and security is just too high right now to not have these kind of validations in place. And as of next year, anybody who wants to be on the floor will have, at this point in time, have priority where they're placed in the exhibit hall, because there's areas of the exhibit hall, like, if you're walking in the doors of the exhibit hall, if you're right in front, you get lots of attention. And so depending where you are, so those that have demonstrated that they are aligned to the 5 quality indicators will have priority access to where their placement is in the exhibit hall. So that was big. It's been kind of the shocker.
Yeah.
And then he said, maybe down the road, it'll get down to it as this becomes the standard that, hey, you either adhere to these 5 quality indicators or you don't get to, come to the show.
Yeah.
You've got a criteria.
That's great having ISTE put their weight behind that, because a lot of times, I don't know if you run into this, but being a smaller size district, we've got less than 6,000 students, less than 1,000 teachers, and we don't have a lot of sway with a lot of the big vendors of saying, okay, we have this safety criteria or this student data privacy criteria we'd like you to meet before we purchase your product. If it's a big enough company and we're a small enough district, they don't really care. It's great to see that ISTE put something behind that to give it some weight.
Yeah, and it is ISTE. Obviously, it's the ISTE conference, but all those other organizations are actually putting it behind there too, because they're the ones that develop those indicators. So, quality, and that's what we need when we're talking about cybersecurity, you name it. The last thing here is just a picture of learning principles, and this is a different area there. There's a QR code there, so people are watching right now, they can see the QR code. Informational learning principles, how to cultivate belonging, how to connect learning learner, ensuring equity in across your usage of all the different platforms that a district uses. Are you sparking curiosity? Are you developing expertise? Are you elevating reflection? Are you prioritizing authentic experiences and igniting agency, of course, student agency? And so they've got these transformational learning principles that if you follow these and you are building and working towards this, you'll have optimal learning opportunities happening in our schools. So, see anything there that jumps out at you? From a cybersecurity standpoint, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's ultimately what we're involved with in education is trying to have transformational learning opportunities for our students, and of course in a safe environment. Share. Let's see if it'll let me share this tab. Is AI a big buzzword at ISTE? And so let's see if it'll do that. I don't know if you realize this, but there's a little country by the name of Anguilla, whose domain, and I talked about this at the last podcast a little bit, but is .ai. And because of that, all these companies that are building their softwares that are out there, and I'll introduce one in our party, they're all adding, the .ai domain name, and this country has all of a sudden had a windfall of money coming away because they own the old domain as for their country, as their country code. Have you heard about this, Andy?
But no, it's really great, and especially I think the AI domain registration is one of the pricier ones. I think $75 a year, so that's a pretty good little paycheck with all the people wanting an AI domain.
Yeah, this actually, I guess, from August of last year, but I heard about it a couple of weeks ago, and tiny island country could rake in 10% of its GDP in domain sales this year.
That's great.
Basically, it put them on the map, if you will. They were always on it, right? But now they're making that map. So that was the buzz. Everybody was talking about how they're adding AI into their product if they don't already have it. There were plenty of companies there that have been started with AI right from the get-go. I will say that a couple of those, what's interesting is we've decided as a district to partner with a couple of those companies. And, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. It turns out that one of the companies that one of the reasons we partner with them is they're stable. They signed a data privacy agreement with us. They did process, which maybe we could talk about in another episode, in terms of equity and inclusion and ethics. And so we decided to partner with that company. But the company, I was telling different people that when I was presenting, because I was presenting on AI at the ISTE conference as well, is that with this company, because they have one of the longest running standards, a whole 8 months they've been around in business. And it was just like, oh my gosh, risky is kind of hairy, it's pioneering to partner with a company that's only been around 18 months, but they are like one of the most stable ones when you compare all the other ones that are out there. So.
And that's one of the neat things too. Think about the timeline of something like ISTE. I think the call for proposals is very early in the year. Last year, I think there was probably some of the AI sessions, but they've really had a full year since ChatGPT launched of really that AI explosion. So I'd say this is probably the first ISTE since it's been where they've had proposal windows open with a lot of AI going on. So
you're absolutely right. Yeah, there was so many sessions, an AI playground or a whole AI laboratory, if you will, so you can hear from different companies or how school districts are utilizing AI to improve, hopefully instruction, but to improve efficiencies across the district as well. And one of the last I want to talk about, that was an opportunity that I had, is I had a gentleman by the name of Fabio, not the Fabio with the hair and everything, but Fabio works for a company called I. And he reached out to me through LinkedIn and said, hey, I want to get your take on product, ChatGPT, and how it's an educational environment. So literally, I sat down with him yesterday. Right off the get-go, I said, oh, I love ChatGPT, but guess what? We might end up blocking it in our district because I do not want our our teachers, students, staff for that matter, exfiltrating data to OpenAI because I don't have a data privacy agreement. OpenAI wouldn't sign a data privacy agreement with us, and I don't want teachers uploading all of a sudden rosters of their students, which includes a lot of PII to these companies, to that company especially. And if it's going to take our student data and build their learning models, LLMs, and when I had a chance to sit down with him, I hate to tell you this, but we're going to block you. And I said, unless, of course, you'd be willing to sign a data privacy agreement. So I told him, I said, approximately 34 states are part of the Student Data Privacy Consortium, and probably even more than 34 states now, and they all kind of subscribe to the National Data Privacy Agreement. We have our own version one here and that one in Illinois is call it SOPA, the Student Online Personal Protection Act. It's a 22-page document. And I said, and so I'm actually sending that off to him today so he can, since they are very interested in doing that. And I talked about the importance that if they do sign this, then we don't have to block it, number one. And he is 13 to 18 years old, or it can be above 13, which a lot of the companies that are out there have to be 18. You have to be 18 to use it, and so on. So most of the time, the other ones that are out there is only for teaching staff. What do they do with student data? That's part of it. But I told him, I said, if you sign this digital data privacy, you end up having Thus, if sign it with us, then other districts in our whole state can do an Exhibit E, which is part of the data privacy agreement, which allows them to piggyback off of our data privacy agreement, which means OpenAI would then have the ability to do business with all these other ones. So when you talk about doing business, well, people on our that are viewing right now say, "Well, I pay anything to use ChatGPT." You know, if you pay for the risk personally, and I do, I'm doing research and I like the latest information, and I want reliable information coming back in terms of reliable sources and that sort of thing. That's $20 a month, and if you think about that times per user, what I found out in this conversation is OpenAI now has. I'll see if I can pull that up. They actually have had for a while I'll put that up there. Let's see, make it even bigger. They've had for a while a enterprise version of it for corporates at $60 a person per month, which education, that's nearly impossible, right? But just recently, as you can see on the data on this website, this is a search for ChatGPT EDU. They now have an affordable offering for universities to responsibly bring AI to campus. But obviously, they want to bring it down to local school districts as well, public school districts. So you can literally go through this and you can sign up, and it talks about how campuses use ChatGPT today, around being able to bring AI into there and having the latest version. After talking to them, talking to at openai.com, that's his email address if you want to get a hold of him. And that's okay because he wants to do business. So I feel pretty good about sharing that information. I'm going to bring that down from sharing here. What it offers is a walled garden. They literally offer SOC 2 security. And this becomes your own, I don't know if you call it a silo or your own little ChatGPT personal walled garden network where you can now become comfortable sharing student data. And of course, I still won't do this. If we district, I won't do it until they sign a data privacy agreement. But I feel like we're going to get close to that. Maybe by the end of this calendar, that might happen. Once we're able to do that, we can share data with them, and then we can also be able to create our own GPT as well. Talking too much here. I was talking a lot these last couple of days. But if we can create our own GPTs that will only feed off of our own data sets, and those data sets will not be shared with any other user, just ChatGPT in general. In other words, it's in that walled garden again. It allows us to upload our district policies so that we can have a chat bot just for district policies, which I think you and I have talked about. Wouldn't it be nice if we could set that sort of thing up where our users could just ask questions about what's our policy on this, what's our policy on that. I'm also looking at it from a parent standpoint, if we could have another one that would be public facing, public accessible in terms of asking questions, but it would only be on our set data set, and that set data set would not be training all the other ChatGPTs that are out there in the world.
Yeah,
about that big news.
Yeah, so that's great because we've very selfishly been thinking about doing some of the self-hosted offline versions so that we can do things like dump in information about our IT infrastructure and use that for documentation, help tie into when someone's investigating a ticket, instead of having to go through all the ticket history and email history and our separately saved documentation. Just go to one chatbot and start plugging away there. So super excited about that possibility being a little bit easier.
Here's what's even better, and I'm not sure if I heard him correctly, so don't quote me on this, but for education down to $12 a person. I think they said $12 a person per month, per year, but it could have been $12,000 a person, or $12 a person for the entire year, and really bringing education pricing back, because they know that if they want to be able to do business, they have to be comparable to some of the other school solutions that are out there. So I thought that was nice. I thought it was good. We'll stay tuned as far as if they signed a DPA with us, but can't wait to be able to release that. But what an opportunity. I'm glad that they're forward thinking that way and understanding that we don't want to use our students' information to train their large language models.
Yeah, a few problems with that.
There could be a plethora of problems, right? But so that's just some of the exciting things that I was able to take away from ISTE. And there'll probably be some other things that we can bring in down the road in other episodes. I understand that you have a newsletter. That's pretty awesome. You want to introduce on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Tying into what you mentioned with ISTE, one of my favorite things about going to conferences like ISTE or more local conferences is just always that opportunity to find out more. And education is really unique in that it's a very open profession, and people are very willing to let you into their classroom, see what they're doing, see what's going on. In that spirit, a coworker and I, after a conference, we're talking about, like, we've got this idea, we've got this cool tool, we want to share this, we want to share this. And we didn't really have a platform to share short of things like LinkedIn posts or things like that. And we started building up kind of a stack of things that we just wanted to share. And I'll take us to our page real quick.
All right.
And so we started a Substack newsletter page called EdTech IRL. And it's not...
In real life.
In real life, yeah. So we're hitting up those acronyms. It's not really specific to anything. It's not a security newsletter. It's not an educational technology newsletter. It's just a, hey, we saw something cool. It's in this space. We see this in our job. We see this in our life. So let's write it up. And there's a variety of things that we talk about. But this time of year, summer, back to school, that kind of refreshing period, we get a lot of traction on some articles we've done about device prep and device management. We made the transition a few years ago to going with autopilot for Microsoft instead of doing a traditional device image. And so we've written up entire processes. We give really good step-by-steps written by and for people in the trenches. A lot of times you'll do a walkthrough and you'll get to a part where they just gloss over things. We try to go, very deep on this is exactly what you click. This is exactly where you go. These are the ramifications of this setting. So we've had a lot of traction on those series. We also focus a lot on things like Microsoft 365 and security. And so this may not be as applicable to a classroom teacher, but MFA is one of my favorite things to talk about, and just that idea of identity in security in general. And in security, we preach a lot about MFA, but MFA isn't perfect. And so we did a series recently on the importance of phish-resistant MFA. And if you're not familiar with that, what that is, not every MFA is created equal. There are some kinds of MFA that's very easy for an attacker to intercept between your sign-in and the site they're going to through clicking on something like a malicious link. And we did a series on phish-resistant MFA and a walkthrough of what the process looks like from an attacker point of view, how easy it is to set up a server to intercept someone's MFA token with a malicious link. And so we did a series on that, and a series on, or one on how to set up that server step by step. If you ever wanted to demo how to do an MFA bypass attack, there's all the steps for how to do that.
So is this facing Andy, or Andy, I could log in and with the link there that you have there and learn stuff for our district? Yeah,
so it's public facing. We do have a newsletter subscription. It's a free subscription, but everything that we publish on the newsletter goes to the site. And so there's a ton of stuff on Microsoft 365 security, just a wide variety.
I asked what platform you're using to create this and host this.
So we're using Substack.
That's right.
Yeah, and so it does a really good job of integrating the newsletter aspect with the page aspect. We have a lot of control over what it looks like when we send things. We can have collaborators pretty easily, so we've had a few guest articles. And then probably my favorite section, if you get to know me long enough, you'll learn that I'm a rabid Microsoft Edge fanatic. And all those browser wars, I'm the one person over here going, Edge. After a long time with Chrome.
Why do you like Edge so much?
Especially in a K-12, we're a Windows district, and we had Chrome as our default browser for a very long time. And we just found there were a lot more ways for kids to bypass security restrictions in Chrome. Okay. And we focused on, we made multiple browsers available for a long time, and we just found that we had so many different surfaces that we were trying to lock down that it became just unruly. And so we focused on Edge, and Edge does a lot of really education-specific tools built into the browser, things like immersive reading, read aloud, and then a lot of tools around. So like you can do screenshots inside of Edge. There's a little snipping tool. You can also edit images. So there's just a ton of features that are built into Edge that help in an education environment. So I've got an article called Edging Out Chrome, and in there walk through a lot of features that are in Edge that you don't get in Chrome. I was a very early adopter for Google and Google Chrome, and I was on the anti-Edge bandwagon for a very long time, but now I'm firmly in that camp. So you get to see my love affair with Edge through this platform as well.
Pretty cool. Well, and now Edge has a lot of cool features or availability right there at your fingertips while you're browsing too, I bet.
Yeah, and especially one of the things that I have to do a lot of is jump between computers, and so there's no telling what computer I'm going to be on a given day, and so I'm having to transfer things back and forth between computers a lot. And one of the cool things is there's a feature in Edge. Sorry, the Copilot jogged this memory. There's a cool tool called Edge Drop, where you can open up a AirPlay for Apple, where you can basically just drop something in on your browser on one computer, and any other browser you're signed into with that profile, you can access that content. Just a lot of really cool, thoughtful features where you can tell the people that made the products, use the products, and said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had this? And they throw it in.
All right. That is so cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
All right. We're coming to our time together. And we always like to leave our audience with a tool, a little nugget. That was the great thing about ISTE is, there were so many nuggets being shared and being able to learn about and trying to jot them all down in one place, find a perfect place to keep those notes together. But I had an event, a pre-ISTE event that Tech and Learning magazine put on, and they have summits all around the regional summits, and this was one that they always do for ISTE, and so I was invited to that. It was held at the Denver Zoo. So here we are, we're doing technology at the Denver Zoo. But I actually learned of a really cool tool that day. It was brand new about it. You may have heard of Sora, and I'm not talking the library software that's out there or reading book software, because that's another company that's out there that was on the ISTE floor. But there is Sora that OpenAI is developing to be video via prompts. And of course, they wowed the world a couple of months ago about that. What that looks like hasn't been fully released to us as the general public, but you can tell other companies have latched onto that and have started to do that. So I'm going to bring up one here. It's called Steve.ai, Steve AI. Okay. So like a person's name, and maybe that's the person who founded it. His name was Steve. So they just said, let's name this tool after me. But what it is, it's already a 2.0, as you can see here. It's an AI tool beyond text to video. Steve isn't just text to video, it's text, any type of video. You name it. You upload else here, there's a little video that's showing our AI voice to live video, animated talking heads video. So, hey, who knows? Maybe Andy will do a podcast episode using.
We can use our talking heads.
Yeah, we can be the talking heads, but notice it has also hand-drawn videos and 3D videos as well. I don't even know what skeuomorphic videos are, but I guess you're seeing them right there. Content creation, all with Steve AI 2.0. What's in Steve AI video generator? It's the #1 AI video generator. I just started to play with it. Obviously, I click over here on pricing. Let's take a look at what pricing would cost. $15 a month, billed annually, recommended starter, $45 a month, and $60 a month if you're the pro. I think you could do some free ones, just like a lot of the companies do. They have, they give you a couple of tokens a month to be able to do some free ones to try it out. But we actually did it at the Tech and Learning, event, and we created a video within literally 45 seconds. We had the video based on a couple of prompts, and it was just how good it was. And so it's a new tool, cool tool to check out and see. Look at that, they're already at 2 million users, probably only about a couple months old, but maybe they're older than that. I don't know. We haven't investigated that far into it, but a friend of mine at that conference introduced it and said, hey, have you seen this? I have a feeling this is where Sora is going to be going, and it's going to be stronger, you name it. But this is a really good start. So hope people can be able to utilize. And as I stop sharing my screen, what do you think of a tool like that?
I think I'm going to start playing with that as soon as we end this call. Very neat, especially when I think about educational applications. And there are a lot of people that have maybe tried the flipped classroom kind of mode or the one-take videos, and they just can't get past that, the nerves of seeing and hearing themselves.
Yeah.
That can really expand possibilities for people and speed up that production. Instead of blocking off an hour or two to make a 20-minute instructional video, just cut that way down.
Yeah. That's what we have for you today. Tune in to some wonderful other things. I said next week, next episode. Okay, could be next week, could be 2 days from now. Who knows? But next episode, we're going to have wonderful conversation. Probably more cybersecurity focused than this one was, because this was more an ISTE highlight type thing. But plan on it for it, and we'll be bringing more soon. On behalf of the Zero Breach Zone, I'm Phil Hintz, and he is
Andy Lombardo.
All right, and we are striving towards having a zero breach zone everywhere. Good day.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Zero Breach Zone podcast. We hope our conversation left you feeling more informed and empowered to protect our K-12 schools from cyber threats.
A big shout out to our sponsor, Cybernut AI, for making this podcast possible. Cybernut is committed to providing security awareness training designed for schools, helping educators and students navigate the digital world with confidence.
If you want to learn more about how Cybernut can help strengthen your school's cybersecurity defenses, head over to their website, cybernut.com, and sign up for their training program. Together, we can create a safer online environment for everyone in our educational communities.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Connect with us on LinkedIn to join the conversation and help us build a strong community around cybersecurity and education.
Join us next time on the Zero Breach Zone for more insightful conversations. Stay vigilant, stay ahead, and let's keep our schools a
Zero
breach
Zone.